Welcome back, everybody. This week I'm painting up some cultists from Bestiarum miniatures. I wanted to do something in 28 mil. I'm still on this journey of kind of refining, rediscovering my skills in this hobby after not painting for almost 5 years. So this is going to be a good opportunity for me to do that with some pretty cool miniatures that I 3D printed from Bestiarum miniatures. These are some of the easiest models in this line of cultists that they have. So I figured they would be a good opportunity for me to work on some skin tones and then work on some, trying to do some texturing on some cloth because they do have a lot of cloth. And these have the least, I would say, not detail, but they have the least going on out of this range of cultists. I probably have almost 20 cultists that I need to paint right now. I don't need to paint, I want to paint. Um, So I'm going to start with these three guys, kind of refine, rehone some of those skills, and just go from there. Like I said, my goal with this one is to try to work on skin tones, try to work on bringing in the atmosphere of the miniature. I want these guys to feel like they ain't seen sun in a while, right? They're cultists. They're living in a cave, offering chunks of human to some crazy freaking demon jailer dude. I'll get him. I'll let you see him. See if we can get it in focus. Probably not. Anyways, yeah, this is what they're offering chunks of human to. So, yeah, I feel like they don't see the sun very out. They don't get out. Okay, they don't go. They don't go to Texas Roadhouse. They don't do none of that. They don't see the sun much. Okay. Also, I am absolutely dreading the day that I have to paint that miniatures. I get extreme like anxiety from big miniatures like that. But here's a look at one of the cultists I'll be painting next time I do cultists. Where are we at here? Whoa, yeah. There's a look at that. All right, let's go ahead and pop into it. So as usual, nothing too crazy. Started with the zenithal, black primer over a white ink. Didn't do anything else with the airbrush. That's all I got done with the airbrush on these. Looking back at it, I think I probably should have put a little bit more time into it. I probably could have established a lot better colors with the airbrush for these large robes that they have. Probably could have built up a lot better transitions, a lot faster too. So for the skin tones, what I decided my colors were going to be based around the shadows. I wanted the deep shadows. I was going to do a mix of Payne's gray, dark magenta. I started out with that mix of the Payne's gray and dark magenta, mixing that, really trying to get in the deep shadows. So I picture this atmosphere as it's a cave. It's dark. There's barely any light. So I wanted under the neck, in the creases of the chest bones, down to the gut that's kind of hidden by the robes and the cracks of the legs, all that stuff. The back of the heads because they're looking up. I wanted all that to be very dark. Then with that magenta, I'm kind of going over a lot of the skin here because I'm going to go back over it with the beige red, but I really want to establish those pink tones. It's cold, the blood is rushing to the front of the skin. It's freezing down there, okay? They have nothing to do but give chunks of meat to this fucking jailer dude who's got humans living in his stomach. They don't have a good life, okay? They don't get to go tanning. That's just the way it is. So once the magenta, I had it pretty much all over anything. I went in with just beige red, um, and started building up the skin tone. And this, I covered anything that hasn't been covered yet. I covered it with this beige red. The only thing I didn't cover is the shadows. So I wasn't covering the creases in the leg. You can see here, I was leaving. I want that magenta to be shown through. Also, one of the things that really pissed me off is this one miniature just has like frog hands, like all his fingers are fucking glued together. Here, I'll see if I can show you. What the hell's going on there? Yeah, his hands, like he has no definition in his fingers. And I think that was a product of the 3D print. So once the magenta, I had it pretty much all over anything. I went in with just beige red, um, and started building up the skin tone. And this, I covered anything that hasn't been covered yet. I covered it with this beige red. The only thing I didn't cover is the shadows. So I wasn't covering the creases in the leg. You can see here. I was leaving, I want that magenta to be showing through there. Uh, any areas that I went through and I saw, there was still some black showing through from the zenithal. At this point, I went back in with that mix of magenta or magenta and Payne's gray and kind of build up some of those shadows. This was stuff like some of the creases in the legs that I didn't get underneath the robes, or more importantly, the mouth, the nose, because they have the tips of their nose cut off. Because why wouldn't they? They're cultists, of course they do. And then their eye sockets, which are really sunk in. Also around the head that's sitting in the robe, so kind of like this area, I guess you could say. And at this point, I am super happy with how these skin tones look. Right now, the level of pink that's in there is great. I really like that. I still want to build up the highlights. I want to get a little bit more color in there, a little bit more skin tone, I guess you could say, because they're pretty pink. And by the way, I'm not touching the leg the guy is holding yet because I want that to be a different skin tone, right? This is somebody who stumbled into the wrong cave and now they're a sacrifice. So this person doesn't have the same issues as the cultists do. I guess they have it worse because they're dead. Then here I'm just going in with the beige red again, just trying to really establish some of these highlights. I'm trying to be precise, especially on the legs because they got a lot of fine creases where I want that magenta to still be showing through. So I'm just trying to build up that color again, bring a little bit more life into the skin, a little less pink, but not too much. You can see this is really the step where I start to leave some color behind. I'm starting to leave some of that pink behind. I'm working a little bit more towards the highlights and leaving some of that shadow in the darkness. The ribs were difficult for me to pick out. I think I did a fairly good job. I could have done better for sure, but you know, given the amount of effort I felt I felt I wanted to put into these, they turned out okay. But for reference, this is the brush I was using. See if I can get to focus. Then on the faces, I'm just trying to highlight the cheekbones, the brow, their nose, their chin. I'm trying to leave a little bit of shadow between their chin and their lip and then barely get their lips. And then later I'll go in with the dark ivory and try to pick out some teeth and put some little dots for eyes. Next step is the same as the last step. It's just a mix of the beige red and the ivory, building up the highlights a little more, constricting them a little more to the higher areas. And then I'm going to go in with ivory and do the exact same thing. These are going to be the very, very top of the highlighted areas, just the tops of the finger, just the top of the palm, the ridge line, the nose, picking out the lips, maybe a little on the chin. I don't even hit the ribs on all of these. Some of them I went and picked in a little bit, but I don't even hit the ribs on all of these. Maybe just the veins that you can see on the wrist, but nothing too crazy with that just straight ivory. Ivory is also the color I decided to use to pick out the teeth, pick out the eyes. Um, Worked out great. You can see a little bit of it, what looks like eye reflection. So turned out good. So at this point, I'm happy with the skin tone. It looks good to me. Um, I'm not going to push it anymore. I'm happy with how this looks. Now it's time to start on the thing that I really think is going to give me trouble. The thing I'm concerned about the most is these ropes. There's a lot of flat areas. There's a lot of creases and stuff. So we're start on these ropes. The colors I chose for this, again, I stuck with those signature series because I have no self-control when it comes to using my new hobby stuff. So I'm using a little bit of Dowlowry ink. I'm using the dark plum, the royal purple, and then dark magenta as a highlight color. Starting with that Dowlowry black ink, my goal with this was to just establish those deep dark highlights. Again, these guys are in a cave. I want it to be very dark. And I'm going to go over everything with that dark plum. And I want it to barely be shown. Like, I don't want these guys to really be, I want them to be more black than purple, except in the highlights. Looking back though, I don't know if I needed to do this step. It almost seems unnecessary. They still came out very dark and almost too dark in some places. Some places was like you know, for what that seems like. And I can see I'm just going in with the mix of this dark plum all over the whole robe, getting in there in the creases, all the shadows, everything I can, just establishing that purple color, and then I'll come back in with the royal purple and then working my way slowly up to the magenta. So this is where I bring in that royal purple, and I really want to hit just about everything here. I want the black to be in the deepest, darkest recesses, but I want that royal purple, which is a very rich purple color, to be covering the majority of these robes. Once I was done with that royal purple, this is when I start using the magenta. It's going to really throw in those red colors that I like. And this is the first color where I'm not uh, layering as traditional, uh, as you traditionally would. I'm trying to like feather this in, put really thin lines, trying to build up some textures on these high points. I'm trying to feather it in, put thin lines. Also doing some edge highlighting still too. Nothing too crazy, but I'm really trying to feather in some of these places, like the back of the hood, the top of the hood on the one that has this hood on, those types of places. This is also about the time that I realized magenta is no way going to be my final highlight because you can barely see it. I'll have to do 1,000 layers of this feathering, trying to build up texture for you to even notice it. And I don't got time for that. So this is about the time I decided I'm going to push the limits here. So I mixed in, I don't remember what color it was, but maybe it was the beige red with the magenta. Really wanted a high highlight color here for this, building up this feathering and texturing. And I started working on that. It was a long process, but I just was not happy with the highlights I was getting from the magenta. They seemed almost non-existent, or at a minimum, it was going to take me 85,000 layers to get good coverage. So you could fairly say that it was just laziness that I jumped to this color, but yeah, that's what I'm doing here. This is the biggest critique I have for myself in this video. Besides just rushing it and probably should have just stuck with the magenta and done a bunch of layers. But I feel like my lines weren't super thin. I should have probably tried to push them a lot thinner than I was. Some of them were fairly thick. And I felt like that hurt the texture effect in the end. This is also about the time where I started thinking, I don't know if this skin tones is working. Um, it's too close, and I should have thought about this. I used a lot of the same colors. I should have figured this out, but it's too close to the colors of the robe, and that's really starting to show through now. So I want to try to push the highlights up a little bit more and try to separate the two. Maybe go a little bit more into those red hues than the purple. But yeah, at this point, I'm kind of like, I probably should have went a little bit more blue with the skin tone to separate it from the robes. And then for a very, very few constricted areas, high points on the hood or high points on the back of the robe at some of the creases, down towards the hip, I'm using just a little bit of straight beige red and trying to, feather that in, add some texture to that. And then by this point, I made a decision. The plan is to go over this with a light wash to bring all those colors back into a purple. So I decided to use the Druky Violet wash. I think it's a good mix of purple and red here. That's really going to bring all the colors back together. It's going to bring them back down. I went pretty high on the highlights, again, because I rushed them. And yes, I just went over the whole miniature with the Druky Violet, and I think it did a pretty good job of going for that effect that I was looking for. I think this made a lot of those high highlights look more like texture and still have that highlight effect. And then with that, I was calling the cloth done. At this point, wasn't too much left to do. The big thing was the severed leg and then the rope bits, and that was pretty much it. And I got a little lazy here, used some of the same colors. Started off with a dark umber, or it was a light umber. Pretty sure it was a dark umber. Let's look. It was a light umber. Okay, I forgot. I forgot. Give me a break. I'm a light umber with for the ropes. I also use that for the shadows for the legs. Um, and then after that, started just mixing in a little bit of ivory, trying to build up the highlights for the rope. Um, and then I went to pure ivory for the ropes and just tried to hit just the I don't know how you say the individual strands that are wrapped on there on some of the high highlight portions, middle of the back where it's really sticking out. And then for the leg, I was just started mixing in layers of the light skin tone. Started with a little bit of the golden brown and then went to the I don't even remember what skin tone it was, but was just building that up. With the ropes, I went in with a little bit of the uh, scale 75 chestnut ink. Um, I toned it down a lot with water before I went over that. Then for the leg, I did not put any type of wash over it. I thought it looked fine, just like the skin tone for the Cultist. Didn't think it needed it. But what it did is this leg's been cut off. There's bound to be some blood. So I used a little bit of Army Painter, I think it is. Let me check. Yeah, Army Painter War Paints Chaotic Red. That's what I used for the blood effect. I think it turned out absolutely great. I'm happy with that. And at this point, they're pretty much done. So all in all, at this point, I'm pretty happy with the effect I got. Again, I'm just using this to learn, uh, to get back to the point I was. I still don't even think I'm close. Not overly ecstatic about it, but I'm happy with these, you know. I think they look good from 2 feet away. You can't see any blemishes, you can see highlights, you know. I'm happy with it. It was a good learning experience. My brush control is still definitely not up to standard in my opinion, but I'm getting there. I think I could have done a little bit better with establishing shadows and highlights for the robes. I think I might have been too extreme on the spectrum. I probably should have slowed it down. Probably should have done a little. It would have been a lot more layers, but yeah. But in the end, these guys look good. They look like cultists. They look like they're up to no good. They're chopping people's legs off. They're giving it to creepy giants with cages in their stomach. So what more can I ask for? I'm definitely gonna be doing more of these in the future. They're fun. They're creepy. There'll be options for me to do some non-metallic metals and stuff like that. More options to work on my skin tone. Some of these guys have like no fucking clothes on, so kind of weird. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna be working on. I hope you guys enjoy it. What do you think I need to work on? What could I have done better? Give me tips and trips. Tips and trips. I mean, if you want to pay for me to go on a trip, that'd be cool too. But I mean, I don't think I'd do that. Tips and tricks on what you think I could have done better with these guys. Definitely need it, and I'll take any advice. All right, guys. Until next time, next week, I will see you. Have a good one. Get some minis painted, and yeah, give me a sub if you like this video.